Today we're going to be taking a look at one of the most bizarre LEGO Star Wars sets ever made, that being 7664 TIE Crawler from 2007. This set contains 548 pieces, and it was released all the way back on August 1st of 2007, and then it retired the same year in December of 2007, giving it one of the shortest lifespans of any LEGO Star Wars set ever made. It had an original retail price of $50 US, which adjusted for inflation comes out to about $75 to $80 in today's money. However, if you want this set new sealed in the box like I have here, you're going to be looking at paying around $300, and if you want it used, it goes for around $100, which actually seems like a pretty solid deal. And obviously the main question with this set, and probably the main question that's on most of your guys' minds, is where in Star Wars did this vehicle appear, and why did LEGO make it into a set back in 2007? And well, obviously this is an expanded universe or Legends set, and it first appeared in the Dark Empire comics back in 1991, and that's what really made this vehicle popular, or at least popular enough for LEGO to make it a set 16 years later. And in February of 2007, about 8 months before the set released, it also appeared in a different Legends book, and that might have played a role in this set's creation too, but I'm honestly not entirely sure. But really, this is just an obscure Legends vehicle that LEGO for some reason kind of just randomly decided to make into a set in 2007. And they also kind of fairly made a big deal about it being an expanded universe set too, because it's in a lot of the original advertising for it. But regardless, this was one of the very few standalone Legends sets from the 2000s. And what's even more interesting is that when LEGO did make Legends sets in the 2000s, they were almost always TIE variants. In 2004, they released the TIE Fighter collection that had the droid TIE Fighter. In 2007, they obviously released this TIE Crawler, and then in 2009, they released the TIE Defender, which was still a Legends vehicle at the time. So it's kind of interesting that in the 2000s, when LEGO wanted to branch out into expanded universe material, it seems like TIE variants were what they were most comfortable with. Oh, and then one other thing I gotta add is that a lot of people usually get this vehicle mixed up with the TIE Mauler that appeared in the Empire at War video game, and if you don't know, that's a completely different vehicle. It has like weird triangle-shaped treads and not oval-shaped treads like the TIE Crawler. Anyways though, if you didn't know, 2007 was the 30th anniversary of Star Wars, and this was one of the sets LEGO released to celebrate that anniversary, as you can see with this cool logo here on the left side of the box. And then also up here next to Vader on the front of the box, you're going to see a very faint number 30, with even more faint numbers inside that 30 saying 1977 to 2007. On the bottom left side of the box, you're going to see big text saying limited edition, because like I mentioned earlier, this set was only available for about 4 months. And then on the right side, you're going to see 2 Shadow Troopers, and this was actually the first set that LEGO debuted them in. And then they appeared again the next year in 2008 in the Imperial Dropship Battle Pack. Another thing I want to talk about is the front box art, because as you can see here, it has a Naboo background, which is cool. I mean, it's not like there was a specific planet this vehicle was supposed to appear on. However, what's funny is that on the top of the box here, well, one image is going to be showing the Shadow Troopers again, but the image next to that shows a different angle of the build, and as you can see it there in the background, there's literally an MTT coming over the hill, and it looks very similar to the background art of the actual LEGO MTT that released earlier that year in May. So I guess for this picture, LEGO used that same background box art, except they for some reason left the MTT coming over the hill. On the back of the box, there's a lot going on. Down here on the left side, you're going to find a bunch of pictures showing all of the different play features and functionalities of this set, and then on the right side, you're going to have a picture showcasing some other 2007 sets. Opening up the box and digging in, on the inside, you're going to find 8 unnumbered bags, and if you're wondering, no, my set did not have a gold C-3PO in it. Regardless though, there's also going to be 2 instruction manuals, and unfortunately mine were very wrinkled up. However, there was still some really cool stuff on the inside, as you can see here, an ad showcasing these same sets that were on the back of the box. And then there's also this insane advertisement right here that's showcasing just various different 2007 sets, and until I opened this set, I had actually never seen this before, and I'm not gonna lie, it looks freaking awesome. And then on the very back, you're gonna have just even more 2007 advertisements. Now, one strange thing I noticed while I was building this set was that there were actually 2 different shades of the blue color pieces. As you can see here, one is a lighter blue and the other one is a darker, almost greenish blue, and these darker blue pieces were cracking on me like crazy. It was honestly really annoying, but at the same time, I was super confused because I thought just the old brown pieces and the old dark red pieces were the only colors that cracked. But no, it turns out that this one specific darker shade of blue also cracks, which is something I've never heard anyone mention before. So if you know the reason as to 1, why I was getting 2 different shades of blue, and then 2, why the darker blue pieces were cracking, please let me know down in the comments, because again, I've never seen this before. From there though, the actual build process itself was honestly not very enjoyable, because there was just a ton of repetition, especially with the treads themselves. As you can see here, you have to put together 2 separate treads that are both 81 pieces each, and yeah, again, it was just not the most enjoyable build process I've experienced. Moving on to the minifigures, that of course being the 2 Shadow Troopers. These are actually personally one of my favorite Stormtrooper variants that LEGO has ever made. Now that is mainly due to nostalgia. I mean, I'm not going to be one of those people and sit here and act like these would hold up today, but they've still always just been very special to me. The torso printing, as you can see here, is just a very subtle gray color. Same thing on the back, it's just very subtle gray markings, which honestly, for 2007 standards, I think that was the best LEGO could do, because if you look at actual pictures of these guys, they literally are not any other color but black, so it makes sense as to why they'd use a very faint gray color to make out the shapes on their torso and back. Their helmets, however, actually have sand blue printing on them, which I think looks phenomenal. For some reason, to me at least, the sand blue and the black just complement each other really well. And then underneath the helmet, if you're wondering, it's just a blank black head. Now, one thing you might be wondering is, why did LEGO include these guys in this set and not a normal TIE fighter pilot? And well, I'm not 100% sure, but my best guess is that LEGO just wanted to be 100% consistent with the whole expanded universe theme of this set. So instead of reusing TIE fighter pilots that they had produced in the past, they wanted to include some cool characters they've never made before that were at the time still legends, which led to them making the first Shadow Troopers here and debuting them in this set. But now finally moving on to the actual TIE crawler build itself, it's interesting to say the least. It's definitely not a perfect build by any means. It has its pros and cons. But the first thing we have to do is obviously test out the tread function, and much to my surprise, it actually works really well. For some reason, I was expecting the treads to, you know, struggle to rotate and just slide, especially on a hard surface like this. However, as you can see, they actually gain traction and rotate very easily. And I have to say, it looks really cool, and it's a really fun feature to mess around with. But then, as you saw on the back of the box, the entire tread sections themselves can rotate around like this, to where if you want to, you can have it to where the treads are facing the opposite direction, which is actually how they have it on the front box art if you didn't notice that already. But to be honest, I think it looks kind of goofy like this. It's definitely better with the treads facing the other direction. Also, one thing I found kind of annoying about the tread sections is that when you pick up the set just holding it from the cockpit, they obviously will swing down, which does make it kind of tedious to sit back down on a flat surface, but it's not that big of a deal. Now, the actual individual tread sections themselves are really not much to look at. As you can see, they're pretty much just a flat plate with some blue pieces scattered around it. Same thing on the insides here, minus the connection point, there's really just not a whole lot going on. However, I do have to say, for the standard of old school blue LEGO TIE fighters, they get the job done. And they actually contain a pretty cool play feature too, being these little hidden rockets that can fold out. And these are super simple, but at the same time, I think it's pretty creative, and it definitely gives the build a bit of charm. One last thing I should mention about the tread sections though is that they are very flimsy. I haven't had them break off on me, but as you can see here, they do wobble quite a bit. So if you don't handle this set carefully, I can't imagine that them breaking off could be a potential problem. Moving on to the cockpit, the first thing you're going to notice is this beautiful printed windscreen, which for nostalgia purposes just looks cool to me. I know the actual cockpit itself is not very accurate, they didn't get the shape down right, but I still just enjoy these old printed TIE fighter cockpits. And then on the top, you're also going to find a printed hatch piece, which looks really good. To access the inside, the whole front windshield piece simply just rotates up, where there is pretty much no interior at all, as you can see here. There's just a transparent piece and then I guess what could be like a joystick, but despite that, there's still obviously enough room for you to fit your Shadow Trooper in here and then close the cockpit back down. At the bottom of the cockpit, there are these three main cannons, which honestly look pretty cool in this triangle pattern, and you can actually remove the bottom middle one here, which kind of makes it seem like it would be a flick fire missile. However, on the backside here, there's literally barely any access to it to be able to do that. As you can see, I mean, it's just not reachable. And then what's really annoying about it is that when you pick the build up and handle it, it has a tendency to slide out, as you can see here. And at first, I was just thinking this was kind of a useless flick fire missile play feature that shouldn't be here. But then I was skimming over this vehicle on Wikipedia, and as you can see here in one of the paragraphs, it literally says suspended below the cockpit was a retractable light turbo laser. And then I was like, oh, well, I guess this is technically accurate and not supposed to be a flick fire missile. LEGO knew exactly what they were doing here. And then lastly, on the back side of the cockpit, you're going to notice this kind of arm that sticks out back here that has what looks like bombs on it, but I did some research on Wikipedia and they're supposed to be fuel canisters actually. But regardless, they definitely do give it kind of a unique look. And as you can see here, it can be a handle to grab as you push it around. But that is all there is to see with this TIE crawler. One of the most infamous and kind of mysterious LEGO Star Wars sets ever made. And that obviously didn't blow me away, but there are some things I like about it. Like for instance, the tread function. It works a lot better than I was expecting it to, and it's just fun to mess around with. And then on top of that, I simply think the thing just looks pretty cool. So if I had to give it a rating based on 2007 LEGO Star Wars standards, and especially comparing it to the other $50 sets that released that year, that being the Jedi Interceptor with Hyperdrive Ring, the Imperial Landing Craft, and the Hoth Echo Base, I think I can give it a pretty solid 7 out of 10, again for 2007 standards. So let me know what you guys think about this set down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, those, you can see them on the screen right now.